What's up, guys? It's Chubby Boy again. Back with the full review of the Reloop spin. Gonna just kind of wing it here and just talk overall about everything. I'm gonna get as detailed as I can about everything that's going on with this thing, and hopefully I don't miss anything. I apologize if I'm pointing to something or holding something up to the camera and you can't see it. It's kind of tough to. I'm not really a videographer, so it's kind of hard to make sure that everything's good with that. But I thought that let's start with the positives. Overall, it's a nice feeling, high quality feel turntable. The plastic feels of quality. The whole thing is pretty light, but in a way that's good because it's portable. You know, you got to carry it around with you. So the build quality is pretty nice. The design's nice. You know, obviously it's similar to a Vestax Handytrax, and I think that was a nice design when they had it, and you know, this is a nice design now. One of the obvious major pluses is that you can have a full-size fader in this thing, you know, out of the box. That's obviously a huge thing, so that's, you know, that's good. Let's see, I wrote this down just so I wouldn't forget anything. Bluetooth, built-in Bluetooth. The Bluetooth pairing works perfectly from my experience. I've had zero issues with that. It does pair automatically when you turn the turntable back on with the last Bluetooth device that it was connected to. So if you have a phone, you know, and you got a Looper app, obviously it just connects up right away, which is really nice. So that's pretty good. Let's see what else. The platter. That's something a lot of people ask about. The platter is nice. The platter, I don't think that you need a platter stabilizer. I don't think that you would need really much of anything for this platter. If you wanted to get like a solid cuts platter, you certainly could. And obviously that's going to be, you know, more solid, but they did do a good job with the platter. It feels like it's got maybe some bearings underneath it or something, just keeping it nice and firm. It's much, you know, the PTO1 platter really kind of rocked back and forth if you didn't have a platter stabilizer. So that's much appreciated. Another thing is the pitch control. I believe the PTO1 Scratch had 10%, plus minus 10% pitch control. This thing has plus minus 20%. That's a major plus just for you got a scratch record, skipless scratch record or whatever. You're trying to match it up with a beat. And having that extra 10% can actually make a big difference in terms of how far, you know, forward or backwards you can go with speed and, you know, match up your samples to your beat. So I really do appreciate that. The USB recording, let's talk about that for a second. I tested out the USB recording. It works fine. It's pretty easy. You just press the button. You see it flashing and it's recording, I believe, and then you hit the button again and it stops recording. It records everything. It records the beat coming through Bluetooth. It records you scratching or whatever you want to do. You could also probably just use it for if you're into vinyl and, you know, you wanted to record your you know, vinyl tracks onto MP3, you could do that. Quality of the MP3 I tested, it's 192K, which is okay. It would have been nice. This is kind of what I expected. It would have been nice if it was 320 or something, like some amazing quality MP3, but, you know, it's an average quality MP3 file, but I suppose it could come in handy for practicing if you want to record yourself, if you want to hear it back. I don't know, you could potentially record to MP3 and then try and sync it with a video later. I don't know if that would work or not, but it's a nice feature to have, so, you know, I can't complain about that. Let's see, what else on the positives list? The speaker is nice. The speaker is right here on the front. I don't know if you can see that through, probably can't see that through the little grate there, but if you're in person, you can actually see the speaker. You can tell that it is a better speaker than what came with the PTO1 Scratch. That being said, I don't know why you would use the built-in speaker. It's just never going to be as good as a halfway decent Bluetooth speaker. So, you know, that it's kind of, if it's something that's, you know, portability without bringing a Bluetooth speaker around is very important to you, then, you know, that speaker is better. Just to divert a little bit to a downside, the speaker being right here on the front, when you're scratching, you got to think your stomach's right here. And so a lot of times your body blocks this speaker from sounding as good as it could. So you can sometimes you're standing right here and the speaker gets muffled because you're in front of the speaker. So obviously they had to make design decisions, whatever. I mean, it would have made sense probably to put the speaker on the back or on the top or something like that. I think that's something they just didn't think about when they were making this thing. So that's a minor gripe, but if you're wondering about the speaker, it is better than the PT-01 Scratch and the PT-01, because that speaker was trash. I mean, that was like a toy speaker, if you ever saw it. What else? The power options, that is a big one. That's one thing that I really like about this thing. It takes, let me take the record off here. For power, you got your options of 18650 batteries, which are these lithium-ion batteries. They're pretty cheap and they're pretty powerful, and you can get these, you know, you can get a charger for them or whatever. They will charge within the unit. That's really nice because, you know, having like 6D batteries on the PT-01 was kind of a bummer. Obviously you could mod it to put a, you know, a USB power bank in there, but not everybody wanted to do that. So having this option, just a couple of these smaller batteries, that's a really nice touch. The unit itself is powered by 5 volt 2 amp USB, which means you can power it with a USB power bank or you can plug it into the wall. So this gives you really a lot of options with the, you know, the batteries, the 18650 batteries. You can put a couple of those in your pocket or in your backpack, so you have backups. You can also bring a USB power bank in your backpack. You have a backup there. You can plug it in. The only one gripe I would say is, you know, having a micro USB port as your main power port. I could potentially see this thing becoming loose over time, and that, you know, could pose an issue. So, I mean, I guess they had to kind of do that, but like, you know, these micro USB ports are constantly breaking, so you never know, that could cause an issue. So yeah, I think that's about it in terms of major positives. Now, I guess let's get to the, you know, the cons. The biggest con right off the bat is, which if you watched my last video you're gonna know, is the crossfader. This crossfader is a piece of trash. It's just, I was hoping, you know, Reloop makes DJ equipment. You would think like, hey, they know what they're doing. They make mixers. They've made really good turntables for a long time. You would think they would know how to put a decent fader on a turntable. There is no curve adjustment on this turntable, which is fine, or would have been fine if this crossfader had any kind of a sharp cut on it. And it does not. It's, like I said in my last video, the cut opens at about 1/4 of an inch, which is just literally, there are certain scratches you cannot do, and they're basic scratches, like a crab scratch. You cannot pull off a crab scratch on this thing unless maybe you want to hold the fader out, or you could potentially modify this, maybe if you stuck a piece of plastic in there or something to change the start and stop point, that might work. But, you know, for $250, you're kind of expecting they would put something decent in there. So that's really the biggest letdown of the turntable. I mentioned before the USB power input. I am a little concerned that could break over time. Let's see. The outputs. I don't know if you could call this a negative, but it's the same as on the PT-01. You have multiple outputs. You have, hopefully that'll focus. If not, you have a master out and you have 2 headphone outs. What I was hoping was that you'd be able to use more than one of these at a time, but you can't. So if you plug anything into the master out, it cuts off your headphone jacks. If you plug one set of headphones in, it cuts off your others. So there's really no way to, if you want to record, like direct record what you're scratching, you're going to have to use a splitter, which it was pretty much the same thing on the PTO1. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I, wasn't kind of what I was expecting. I was kind of hoping for a miracle that you'd be able to use more than one of these, but unfortunately you can't. So there's that. Let's see, what else? The needle. Okay, let's get into the needle. The tone arm is fine. It appears to be the tone arm from the same tone arm from the Vestax Handy Tracks, I believe. So, I mean, it's perfectly fine. I haven't really had any issues with skipping. The needle is the same needle that's used on the PTO1 Scratch. And you could look at that as good or bad. I look at it as good, because the needles are very easy to get. And first thing I did was replace the ceramic needle that the unit comes with a diamond needle, and you can get those online for like $10 for like 2 of them, and it just pops off and you replace it and you're good to go. And that helps a lot with tracking and skipping and stuff like that. One other positive thing, I realized I wrote it down but I didn't mention it. One other positive thing is noise. When you plug headphones into this thing, there's very little noise, like little to no background noise. The sound quality is very good. The volume output is very good. The PTO1, I noticed a lot more just kind of like background hiss when I plugged headphones in. This thing is virtually silent, so I will give it props for that. It sounds really nice when you turn it on, and I think probably recording from this, you probably get a little bit cleaner recording than you did with the PTO1. So that's good. One other thing I noticed that I don't know if everybody's going to have this problem, but if you look right here, the auxiliary input knob is all the way up and the volume knob is down here. Sometimes the volume knob is even down here. One issue I found was, and I tried this with 2 phones, the beats coming in from the Bluetooth are not nearly as loud as the output from the record. So what that turns into is you have to turn this knob all the way to maximum, and then this knob you're turning up just slightly. And one issue is that this controls both the record and the auxiliary in. So this is like the master mix. So when you're turning this up, you're turning up the record and the beat at the same time. So sometimes it can be a little bit tricky to get your level of your record and your beat to equal levels for scratching. It's not impossible, but it is not ideal. Like I kind of wish, like it would be about equal, so you had your volume there and your auxiliary there, so that when you have a little bit of room to play with the volume if you get a beat that's a little quieter or a little louder, vice versa. So that's one issue that I had. I guess that's about it. That's the full review. To sum up, basically the big gripe is the fader, and there's just no way around it. The fader, for $250, them not including a decent fader, I really think that for $250 they probably should have properly partnered with Jesse Dean or maybe InnoFader and included one of those faders in this unit, especially for the price. You look at the PTO1 $129, and obviously you still have to buy a fader for that, so you're looking at maybe $200 give or take. This thing being $250 on its own, and then you have to buy a fader for it, it gets a little iffy. Once you get a fader in here, and I have gotten the Jesse Dean fader at this point, once you get a good fader in here, the thing's dope. I mean, you can't beat it. It does feel nicer than the PTO1 Scratch. There's a lot of pluses. It's a lot easier to use. The Bluetooth makes it a breeze to get a beat going. So like I said, once you've got a quality fader in there, you're good to go. But before that, as soon as you get it in the mail and you don't have a fader for it yet, you may not have a lot of joy because of that, because of this built-in fader. So take that as you will. So that's about it. I'm going to wrap up the review and look out for more videos. Hopefully I'm going to be doing some testing and some general scratching on this thing. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.